Let me tell you, crow crow, those demons all had a thing for unnecessarily huge structures. Why are all their citadels so stupidly huge? No, really, what were they compensating for? Sitting in the crow's nest of the main mast of the night garden, many kilometers above the surface of the ocean, Sunny looked at the horizon with a bitter expression. Actually, no one was insane enough to get this high, especially because the masts of the Titanic ship were designed to attract lightning, so he could enjoy some privacy here. Which he did after spending a long time fruitlessly searching the endless expanse of the gargantuan ship for traces of Weaver. Crow Crow tilted its head and gave him a contemplative look, then opened its beak. Crow. Crow. Sunny sighed. Exactly. You make a good point. And what about their own size? Don't they have the decency to stick to one size, at least? Slayer did not seem that much shorter than Weaver in the vision, so why the hell was Weaver's reflection 100 meters tall? What is that about, huh? The tiny bird stared at him with its glistening black eyes. Short. Short. Sunny scowled. Who are you calling short, you soot-covered rook? Let me tell you, I can be as tall as want. I am just choosing to be this size. 100 meters is nothing. Crow Crow gave him a pitying look and cawed, as if proving the point. Suit. Suit. Sunny scoffed and looked away. The coast of Australia, which used to be visible beyond the starboard of the night garden, was now almost behind them. And on the water below, a naval convoy of dozens of immense battleships was slowly moving into formation behind the great citadel's wide bow. Well, the battleships had seemed immense when Sunny first saw them, all the way at the start of the Chain of Nightmares. Now, hiding in the shadow cast by the hull of the night garden, the alloy behemoths looked like a flock of clumsy ducklings following the mama duck. Sunny saw a few familiar figures, as well. On one side of the convoy, a giant killer whale briefly breached the surface of the water, then dove into the depths again. On the other side, a colossal sea serpent cut the waves with the spikes of its long dorsal fin while accelerating to catch up with the Titanic ship. Soon enough, the serpent disappeared, and a man climbed the series of rope ladders to the deck of the night garden, careful not to touch the surface of the hull. By the time Neve reached the deck, Jet was already waiting for him, having descended from the runic hall as a torrent of flowing mist. Someone else was waiting for the Saint of Night there, as well, a teenage girl with hair that glistened with an indigo sheen in the warm sunlight. Dad. Sensing the movement of their shadows, Sunny scratched the back of his head. Who's the girl? His eyes widened. Wait, is that Neve's daughter? What, when did she become a teenager? I could have sworn that she was 5 just a few years ago. He looked at Crow Crow and coughed in embarrassment. Well, I suppose that is how aging works. Wait, how old is Neve? Raising a hand, he started counting on his fingers. When his fingers proved insufficient, he summoned a few shadow hands and continued counting on them. Goodness gracious, what a fossil. It was good that Jet could not hear him, because according to his calculations, they were the same age. Sunny gave Crow Crow a suspicious look. You are not going to rat me out, are you? Crow Crow flapped its wings. Rat. Rat. Whatever that was supposed to mean. Neve, who had been absent from the night garden to guard the refugee ships, gave his daughter a hug and patted her on the head. Then, he turned to Jet. Everyone is accounted for, so we are ready to depart as soon as the details of the defensive formation are decided. The diviners have not sensed any powerful abominations moving along our chosen route, either. I have the report with the exact numbers with me, so should we discuss it now? Oh, there is also a small issue with supplies. His daughter crossed her arms and pouted. Dad. Neve fell silent for a moment. Or we can discuss it in an hour? Sunny sighed. Alas, I don't have a cute daughter to help me slack off. Yet. Anyway, back to work. Crow Crow let out a caw of affirmation. Closing his eyes, Sunny concentrated on exploring the night garden with his shadow sense. The little bird, meanwhile, grew bored with his company and went on a patrol across the highest horizontal beam of the main mast, waddling along its edge with an exceedingly serious look. Soon enough, the night garden began to move again, heading north. The battleships fell into formation behind it, and before too long, the coast of Australia disappeared from view. There was nothing but open water around them. The first time Sunny had crossed the ocean, it had been a nerve-wracking affair. The battleship felt like an alloy coffin, and he could not help but feel wary, knowing the only thing that separated him from the watery depths was a few layers of mundane metal. The naval convoy had been attacked by nightmare creatures many times, as well, once even coming closer to losing several ships. Now, Sunny felt much safer, so safe, in fact, that he did not see a reason to worry at all. Not only was he a sovereign, but he was also sailing on the night garden. The Titanic ship was not exactly invincible, but there was nothing in the Indian Ocean that could seriously harm it, let alone sink it. The storm sea, on the other hand. Let's hope that I find what I am looking for before we return to the dream realm. Despite Sunny's hopes, however, he did not. No matter how meticulously he explored the night garden, there was no trace of anything left behind by Weaver. His blood did not react at all, and even his intuition remained silent. It was as if there was no clue anywhere on the ship at all. With each day that passed without producing a result, Sunny's mood turned more somber. Eventually, he had to admit something that he had been avoiding all along. I think I will have to use that thing to locate Weaver's traces. Just thinking about it made him shiver. In the end, they reached the northern quadrant without much trouble. The voyage took less time and was much less eventful than any of the previous times Sunny had crossed the ocean. Most nightmare creatures seemed to be wary of the night garden and kept their distance, while those who did not were absorbed by the living hull of the Titanic ship. It was quite a chilling sight. The living wood was like quicksand, refusing to let go of anyone who touched its weathered surface. The abominations who recklessly tried to assault or scale it would get their limbs caught in its impenetrable bulwark, and then slowly pulled into the hull of the night garden, never to be seen again. They struggled desperately as the living would absorb them, but to no avail. A few managed to escape by rupturing and tearing off their trapped limbs, but most only became caught more thoroughly because of their frantic struggles. Whatever scratches they managed to leave on the surface of the Titanic ship soon vanished without a trace, with all evidence of its existence gone. So, the horrors of the depths had a good reason to be wary of the night garden, or maybe they were wary of Sunny himself, sensing the vast darkness hiding in his shadow. In any case, there were not as many attacks on the convoy as Sunny had anticipated. Which was not to say there was no danger at all. The battleships following the night garden were still vulnerable, and there was also the threat of aerial attacks. The Great Citadel did not only carry millions of mundane people, though, it also carried countless awakened warriors, most of them seasoned veterans of the evacuation army. Jet and the saints of the House of Night were there to keep the situation under control, as well, so every assault on the convoy was repelled with relative ease. Some of the confrontations with the doomed nightmare creatures were more memorable than others, though. I'll be damned. Shifting his focus away from the search for the traces of Weaver, Sunny looked ahead with a somber expression. Out there, in front of the night garden, the ocean had turned entirely black. The stain of oily black water stretched in all directions, far and wide, darkening the distant horizon. Tall waves crashed into the bow of the gargantuan ship violently, reaching toward it like the blackened fingers of an unknown monster. It was the black water, a mysterious and malevolent phenomenon that haunted both the storm sea and the oceans of Earth. Nobody knew what the currents of the black water were, really. Some considered it to be a kind of nightmare creature, some thought it to be the remains of an ancient terror who had been torn into thousands of pieces. Some even believed that it was the blood of an unholy titan spilled by the gods at the dawn of time. Regardless of what it was, however, seeing the water turn black often meant death for those who entrusted their lives to the sea. But not this time. Sunny could vaguely sense something about the night garden change when it entered the black waters, as if coming awake. Then, the Titanic ship crushed the violent waves and continued sailing forward, cutting the ominous darkness with its bow. Some time later, the ocean cleared. What? It was not that the convoy had crossed the area tainted by the black water and escaped into clear waters. Rather, the oily darkness infecting the waves simply vanished. The night garden had absorbed the black water, just like it would any other nightmare creature or source of sustenance. Forgetting about his search for a few moments, Sunny stared at the pure aquamarine expanse of the ocean with an incredulous expression. I never thought I'd see the day when that thing perishes, never once. His first encounter with the black water had transpired on the way to Antarctica, just before the chain of nightmares consumed the southern quadrant. Back then, it seemed utterly indestructible, in an entirely different category than the things that could be destroyed, even like a force of nature. But now, the night garden had torn apart and absorbed that force of nature, erasing it from the surface of the world. Come to think of it, forces of nature are not what they used to be. People naturally treated natural disasters as the epitome of inescapable calamity and unfathomable power. But Sunny was a being who could weather any mundane storm, remain standing during the most devastating earthquake, and topple erupting volcanoes now. He was indifferent to floods and couldn't care less about droughts, let alone something as trivial as wildfires. He himself could cause a calamity much more terrifying than anything nature could muster. So, it should have come as no surprise that the night garden absorbed the black water, this current of the black water, at least. Somewhere in the storm sea, there were 1,000 more. I still have a score to settle with the dark sea, too. Eventually, the naval convoy led by the wandering Great Citadel reached the coast of the northern quadrant. The Titanic ship spent several days near a port fortress, watching over the refugees disembarking from the battleships and loaded up on supplies. Considering how impossibly tall the hull of the night garden was, it took quite a lot of effort and several complicated systems of lifts and pulleys to raise the cargo containers all the way up to the deck. Once all of that was done, the radiant rift of the Dream Gate opened in front of the giant ship, calling it back home, into the nebulous expanse of the storm sea. Sunny, who was at his limit, felt glad to escape the unwelcoming pressure of the waking world and return to the dream realm. Strangely enough, it felt as if the night garden was relieved to abandon the barren expanse of the war realm, as well. Pushed by invisible winds, the gargantuan ship sailed into the white inferno of the Dream Gate and disappeared from the undulating surface of the ocean, leaving Earth behind. Sunny was anticipating witnessing the endless expanse of the storm sea. He had been to more lethal corners of the dream realm than most people, maybe even than any person, but he had only ever been to the misty coast south of Bastion, never venturing into the nebulous waters themselves. Apart from the idle curiosity of a retired explorer, Sunny also felt a subtle connection to the storm sea. These were the remains of the world that Dayron the Serpent King had ruled once, after all. The shadows of Dayron and Windflower now rested in his soul, while the twilight sea they had failed to save had been consumed by the dream realm. Earth would soon share the same fate, so Sunny felt a kind of curiosity that was both poignant and morbid when thinking about the storm sea. Regardless of what he had expected, though, his first impression of the nebulous ocean was a complete disappointment. That was because Sunny could not see anything at all. Everything around the night garden was shrouded in thick mist, plunging the world into a beautiful, but ominous twilight. Even when he climbed to the peak of the tallest mast of the massive ship, he still failed to catch a glimpse of the sky. The night garden ceased all movement after passing through the Dream Gate, which had already vanished and left it alone in the boundless expanse of the misty sea. There's nothing much to do. We can't sail until the mist passes. Well, technically, nothing is stopping us. It is just too dangerous. While the night garden settled to wait for the weather to improve, Jet retreated to her quarters to rest. Sunny emerged from her shadow, deciding to take a break too. His search had not produced any results, so continuing in the same manner seemed meaningless. He had to gather courage before proceeding to the next plan, though. What kind of dangers are we talking about? Jet gave him an amused look. The kind I have no words to describe, and no desire to imagine. She crossed her legs, looking at the ceiling with a laid-back expression. Don't worry, though. The night garden had been drifting in these waters for thousands of years before being claimed by us humans, and for half a century since. Nothing managed to take it down in all that time. Sunny smiled faintly. Who says that I am worried? Among the long list of my worries, the horrors of the storm sea are all the way near the bottom. He found himself a chair and sat down. Jet chuckled. How's anonymity treating you, by the way? It must be hard for a lofty supreme to keep hiding in the shadows. Unable to let his existence be known to anyone, instead of basking in the glory. She had contacted Nephi's through Cassie to coordinate the opening of the Dream Gate. But really, Sunny could have sent the Night Garden to the Dream Realm himself, only he couldn't, because his existence was supposed to be a secret. The second sovereign. There was the King of Nothing now, too. The whole world was abuzz with the news of a new sovereign supposedly appearing out of nowhere and taking out the Skinwalker. That only made Sunny's situation seem more unfair. He smiled. It's treating me fine, actually I'm used to it. After all, I've been hiding the fact of my existence from long before becoming supreme. As for the fame and glory I supposedly deserve, they were never something I chased. In fact, I spent most of my life avoiding them like a plague, to limited success. Jet remained silent for a while, then said in a contemplative tone. Yeah. I never thought I'd be where I am today either. I am the only saint who comes from the outskirts, you know? The first, and the last. There's not much left of the outskirts, by now. Most people have already left for the dream realm. She chuckled quietly. Who knew that I'd outlive the outskirts? Well, outlive might be too strong a word. Anyway, just thinking about this stuff makes me feel old. The world was changing quickly around them. So swiftly, in fact, that sometimes it was difficult to recognize it when taking a glance. Sunny did not say anything at first, looking at her silently. Then, he smiled. Who says you're the only one? I'm from the outskirts, too. The first supreme to have come from the outskirts, but, hopefully, not the last. Jet looked at him in surprise. You are from the outskirts? She studied him for a while, then let out a sigh. Damn. And you're younger than me, too. No, now I simply must conquer the fourth nightmare, otherwise, it will be embarrassing. Sunny grinned and leaned back. Jet kept staring at him, a smile slowly finding its way onto her lips. I'm glad, though. I guess we outskirt rats have done well for ourselves, after all. Oh, it also explains why there's no record of you in any government database. I think I drove several intelligence executives into an early retirement while trying to uncover the identity of the Lord of Shadows. I owe them an apology, I guess. Sunny let out a short laugh. Then, his expression slowly turned somber. Speaking of that, I need to gather some intelligence, as well. Jet raised an eyebrow. I get it that your search is not going well? Sunny shook his head slowly. No. And since we are pressed for time, I think I am going to have to do something drastic. He hesitated for a few moments, then gave her a dark look. So, I need you to watch over me for a bit. Oh, and if it looks like I am unraveling, knock me out. Jet's blue eyes widened a little. What? How am I supposed to knock out a supreme? One who has 7 bodies, no less? Sunny grinned. Well, you are Soul Reaper Jet. I am sure you'll figure something out. With that, he summoned a memory. The familiar cool weight of Weaver's mask settled onto his face a few seconds later. It was time to do something that he had been scared of doing for a long, long while. To look upon the world and see it the same way Weaver had. A long time ago, the vile thieving bird stole one of Weaver's eyes, and to replace it, Weaver wove a new enchantment into their fearsome mask. Where is my eye? When the enchantment was activated, the great tapestry of fate revealed itself to the person wearing the mask, either the original one or one of the 2 memories of it Weaver had bestowed upon the high priests of the nightmare spell. The original mask was long gone, having perished with the demon of fate. But at least one of the memory pair remained, and had been found by Sunny in the stone cell under the ruined cathedral of the Dark City, which meant that he could glimpse the vast infinity of fate, as well. The problem was that mortals were not meant to behold it. The oracles of the nameless realm from which the 9 hailed from lost their sight as a result of catching a glimpse of the great tapestry, but really, they got off easy. The first time Sunny had activated, "Where is my eye?" he almost perished on the spot. The only reason he survived was that the unfathomable enchantment of the divine memory exhausted his puny awakened essence in a heartbeat and fell into slumber once again. Still, that single heartbeat was seared into Sunny's mind, having scarred him more than any other torment he had ever suffered. In his personal ranking of the most painful experiences of his life, using "Where is my eye?" was still proudly occupying the top position. It was way worse than being beheaded, having his soul torn apart, and enduring the transformations caused by assimilating Weaver's lineage. Sunny had barely survived beholding the vastness of fate as an awakened, and nothing changed when he was ascended either. In Antarctica, he had used "Where is my eye?" to kill the terror of LO-49, Dusk, Sibyl of the Fallen Grace. The eerie corrupted terror had not quite perished after witnessing the great tapestry of fate, but she was stunned long enough for Sunny to finish the job. He was a supreme titan and possessed Mindweave on top of that. So, Sunny had a reason to believe that he would be able to survive activating "Where is my eye?" this time. However, he was also sure that it was not going to be pleasant. It was not going to be pleasant at all. Not only that, but attempting to behold fate was also a path of no return for him. After all, his essence was nearly inexhaustible now, so, even if things went wrong, he would not be saved from whatever price he had to pay by running out of it. That was why Sunny had been postponing this particular experiment for so long. He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. The memory of the harrowing agony of trying to fathom fate, having no choice but to try to encompass its boundless infinity with his mortal mind, made him shiver. "What exactly are you trying to do?" Jet's laid-back smile was gone, replaced by a cold focus. Sunny lingered for a short while, then said evenly, "Nothing too serious." With that, he gritted his teeth and activated "Where is my eye?" Although many years had passed since the time he witnessed the strings of fate for the first time, he still remembered the sight perfectly. In fact, he could not forget it even if he wanted to, as if every thread and knot of the great tapestry was branded onto his mind. Even now, he could imagine it vividly, the endless, stunning eternity of twisting threads. Those threads transfixed everything in existence, connecting every living being and every object, every thought and every concept, every dream and every nightmare, stretching infinitely into every direction, as well as into the past, the present, and the future. The terrifying enchantment of Weaver's mask not only allowed him to see the tapestry of fate, though, but also forced the understanding of it onto him. The knowledge of everything, everywhere, all at once. No wonder he had almost died because of it. The pain back then had been indescribable, blood had streamed out of his nose, eyes, and mouth, and a silent scream had died on his lips. Even when he tried to escape into the shadows, the suffering did not subside, however, that probably prevented his eyes from turning into smoldering embers and his head from exploding. This time, it was almost manageable. Not quite, but almost. A terrible pain descended upon Sunny, making him feel like his mind was brilliant with searing heat, boiling, and on the verge of erupting like a fuming volcano. He could not help but shudder and let out a tortured groan, wanting to close his eyes, but unable to move, to look away from the wondrous, harrowing sight in front of him, above him, all around him. What? His pupils widened, igniting with a golden glow. Sunny was stunned. Because the great tapestry of fate did not look like the beautiful and awesome image from his memories at all. Instead, it was torn and ravaged, the infinity of its splendor having been mangled and mutilated, thrown into disarray. The strings of fate were all cut and tangled, swaying aimlessly on ghostly winds. It was complete and utter, ineffable chaos. Some of the great tapestry, the past, remained as it had been, untouched by the carnage. However, the present was utterly in shambles, and the future did not exist anymore. How can this be? The shock Sunny experienced was so profound that he even forgot about the awful pain consuming him. How could fate, the most immutable thing in existence, have changed? How could there be no future? He drew in a shaky breath, searching for the cause of all this chaos, the single knot on the tapestry of fate that had caused all this devastation. However, don't really have to guess, do too? Because the cause was pretty obvious. It was him. It was Sunny, his desire to be free of the chains that bound him, and the act of defiance against fate that he and Cassie had perpetrated. Sunny had been fated, and Cassie had been able to know the future. Sunny had wanted to be free, and Cassie had wanted to change fate. So, she gave him a choice, and by making that choice, Sunny became a weapon against fate. He became fateless. However, even knowing all that, Sunny had never expected that their act of defiance would be so effective. Gods. We were mere masters back then. How could two masters have damaged the great tapestry of fate so thoroughly? After all, neither the gods nor the demons had managed to escape their fate. How? Sunny reeled, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. But then, slowly, a hint of understanding formed in his rattled mind. Maybe, it was precisely because Sunny had been a mere ascended that he managed to achieve something that the gods and the demons, even Weaver, had failed to achieve. He exhaled slowly, regarding the breathtaking sight of broken strings of fate. Countless unlikely things had to have happened for him to be cut from their great tapestry. Some of it had been arranged by Weaver, some had resulted from Cassie's meticulous manipulation, and some had been the result of his own efforts. The vile thieving bird, an inconceivable being whom both the gods and the creatures of the void had hated, but were unable to eradicate, played its part, as well. There were several steps one needed to take to vandalize the great tapestry of fate. First, someone had to be torn from its fabric, becoming fateless. That alone was already almost impossible to achieve, but not entirely impossible. The vile thieving bird could steal someone's fate, after all, and if it could, then Weaver, the demon of fate, could have probably managed something similar, as well. Second, the being vanquished from fate had to be someone significant enough for their absence to affect the entire vast tapestry. They had to be someone whose actions echoed across all of existence, reaching its every distant comer, and whose fate was therefore innately intertwined with the fates of everyone and everything. Lastly, that being had to be weak enough for their fate to be taken away from them. And there lay the paradox. A weak being would not be significant enough for the absence to disrupt all of fate, and the fate of a powerful being could not be stolen. So, destroying fate was impossible. Or rather, it had been impossible, before. Sunny was not powerful enough to affect all of existence. While he had done quite well for himself by modern standards, climbing to the throne of supremacy, the great figures of ancient times easily dwarfed him. Compared to the gods and the demons, he was not even an ant, he was like a speck of dust. For now, at least. Sunny had not been significant enough, however, he had been fated. The strings of fate, a staggering amount of them, had been wrapped around him tightly. His life had been a nexus on the tapestry of fate, and once that nexus was cut, many others would have come undone. However, that by itself would not have been enough either. After all, he knew that there had been other fated individuals before him, like the Nine. His personal influence, while widespread, was not that great. But influence was a relative thing. If Sunny had lived during the end of the Golden Age and the horrors of the Doom War, with all the giants moving in the darkness around him, his influence on the world would have been limited. What change could Sunny have effected when the gods and the demons were there, deciding the fate of existence according to their whims? 1,000 of his actions, or lack thereof, would not have accounted for 1,000th of a single feat performed by any of the great deities. But all of them were gone now. The gods were dead, and the demons had fallen. In the vacuum left by their passing, at the end of times, with only a single human realm left standing in the sea of corruption, Sunny, as one of the few supremes of the age of nightmare spell, and poised to become a spirit, had a profound influence. There was simply no one greater than him, and therefore, his actions echoed across all of existence. The impact of his choices was universal. Sunny was both significant enough to affect everything now that there was no one more powerful, and weak enough for his fate to be stolen. So what would happen if someone like him was suddenly torn from the fabric of fate? The great tapestry of fate would unravel. Since the choices Sunny made influenced everything, it would unravel utterly and completely, losing the support of a nexus, an anchor, perhaps. The strings of fate would come undone, causing every other string that touched them to lose purchase, too. The chain reaction would result in a cascade failure, causing unimaginable damage and havoc. He was a single variable that broke the system, introducing chaos to a predetermined flow of events. Faced with the inconceivable chaos of unraveling fate, Sunny completely forgot the reason he had activated, "Where is my eye?" to begin with. There's more to it as well, isn't there? The future was uncertain and insubstantial, brimming with an infinite number of possibilities, both hopeful and dreadful, more sorrowful and vile than anything he could ever imagine. No wonder the oracles and diviners had lost their ability to predict it. The damage had already been done, and fate had already come undone. Now, even if Sunny regained his own, the consequences of his absence would remain. Once torn, the great tapestry could not be mended. How's that, for significance? Sunny and Cassie had managed to do something that no one had accomplished before. They had changed fate. Or at least created the possibility of fate having been changed, in the end. That did not seem like something that two mortals could have done, without help. Weaver, was that a part of their plan, as well? Faced with the infinity of the tom strings of fate, Sunny could not help but suspect that the demon of fate had a hand in their unraveling. Sunny and Cassie had achieved something both harrowing and incredible, but even if their effort was uniquely astonishing, in all of history, that did not mean that theirs was the only contribution. What they accomplished was only possible because of what those before them had achieved. Still, Sunny groaned, slowly coming undone under the pressure of beholding fate himself. None of it would mean anything unless they actually managed to create a benign future, now that any future had become a possibility. And for that, he had to concentrate on the task at hand.